I grew up hating turn-based RPGs. I talked about how I got into JRPGs before and how one particular game made me start to enjoy the genre just a couple of years ago. If it wasn't for this game, I might have never played my personal game of the year, Claire Obscur Expedition 33, so I want to extend my thanks to one of the most unique JRPGs and horror games at the same time, Parasite Eve. Parasite Eve is what you get when you combine your typical Square RPG with Resident Evil and throw in Carpenter's The Thing, a grotesque, theatrical creature feature crime story wrapped up into a video game with the most innovative and creative combat design of its time. This game, just like Final Fantasy VII, starts out with a dramatic, ominous setup similar to other PS1 RPGs of the time, but Parasite Eve does things differently. First of all, this game isn't your typical 40 to 60 hour game with copious amounts of random encounters that will have you sigh and roll your eyes every time your screen freezes and starts playing battle music. No, Parasite Eve is a 15 to 20 hour experience that doesn't overstay its welcome. You play as Aya Brea, a police officer whose personality is probably best compared to Jodie Foster's role in Silence of the Lambs, Clarice Starling. Aya is the only character you will ever control in this game, which is already a different take on the genre. There is no party. Aya is the party, and she has all the abilities that you will normally have distributed amongst multiple members. Not only does she have access to a varied arsenal of guns, but she also utilizes her own peculiar otherworldly power fueled by something the game calls parasite energy. These spells, you might call them, range from buffs and debuffs to heals and devastating attacks. Speaking of combat, it is unlike any other RPG you've played, unless you've played Vagrant Story, the only other game also made by Square that utilizes what I call dome combat. When you start a fight, you can freely run around your opponent to position yourself and evade attacks. Then you activate the dome that will allow you to target anyone who has contact with it. This combat system allows for a much more active, strategic approach and increases tension. On top of the combat being quite addicting in my opinion, the setting and story are also very unusual for an RPG at the time, where usually you will find yourself in either medieval or futuristic scenarios. This game takes place in modern-day New York City, starting on Christmas Eve. Get it? Parasite Eve? And also the main villain is called Eve as well? And has parasitic powers. I have a special love for RPGs taking place in the modern day, like Earthbound, which has you use baseball bats and eat hamburgers instead of swords and potions. Parasite Eve's story plays out over 6 locations inside of Manhattan. You got Central Park, Carnegie Hall, an NYPD police station, the Museum of Natural History, a hospital, and Chinatown. All of these locations are beautifully detailed and reward your exploration like any good RPG should. My personal favorite being a snowy Central Park at night, which feels both eerie and comforting at the same time. Now, can you imagine what these locations would look like if Parasite Eve got the same remake treatment as Final Fantasy VII? Holy shit! Sure, it wouldn't be the first game set in an infested New York City, but that Christmassy feel combined with horror just does something to me. I want to see that shit all dolled up so badly. If this remake ever happens, I just hope it doesn't go exactly like Final Fantasy VII, because when a JRPG just becomes another open world game, it tends to become tedious. The original FF7, like most JRPG at the time, had an overworld, which is different from an interconnected open world like in Rebirth, where traversal can feel really tedious at times. I don't want to see Aya Brea get on a police horse and ride her ass all over Manhattan, although actually that sounds sick as fuck, so yeah, do that. Speaking of Rebirth, please don't stretch out Parasite Eve's story across multiple games. For the love of God, Square Enix, I want the full game. It's not that long. You don't have to stretch it out. Keep it the 20-hour, compact, unique experience that it is. There's almost zero fat on this game anyway. It even offers great replay value, featuring an NG Plus mode rewarding you with a true ending. Okay, so now you might be like, what about the sequels? Well, the second game is a decent Resident Evil clone, ditching most of its unique JRPG feel for pretty generic action horror, but still has some unique elements that I find quite enjoyable, also boasting nice looking environments, but severely shits the bed in the narrative department in my opinion, feeling completely disjointed from the original game's spirit. My favorite thing about PE2 is this particular camera shot at the start of the game. Look at that camera pan! Look at that. Holy shit, that is so next gen. And that's about it. And the third game is not even called Parasite Eve anymore, even if it's a direct sequel. It's called The Third Birthday and came out on the PSP. Many fans of Parasite Eve don't like talking about that entry since it straight up ditches almost everything the first game stood for and morphs into a Resident Evil 4 clone, essentially losing its unique identity. But I actually think that for what it is, a third-person shooter on the fucking PlayStation Portable, it's pretty decent. But yeah, you can play the sequels if you want, but I feel like there is no real need to, since the story of Parasite Eve is very self-contained and its sequels feel very disjointed from the story and ending of the first game. So yeah, there's that. Bottom line, Parasite Eve is an extraordinary blend of the classic survival horror and role-playing genres. This game is slightly on the harder side, but never feels unfair, on top of giving you a lot of control over your character. Aya Brea quickly became one of my favorite PS1 characters, while there's also a bunch of memorable characters in her circle. A game rich with not only interesting and varied boss fights, but also nicely crafted environments with incredible atmosphere and fantastic music, wrapped up in a very 90s feel narrative. If you haven't tried this game yet and you're a fan of the horror genre or the JRPG genre or both, and if you don't mind old games, give this one a shot. Oh yeah, and there's fucking dinosaurs, so like go play it.